Hello, this is Jack Anthony, and I am a member of the Alaska Aerospace Board of Directors, and I'd like to present to the men and women of Alaska Aerospace the story of the foundations of mission operations, the guiding principles for human spaceflight mission control. They're a set of core values and guiding principles that provided a sense of purpose and vision to the men and women who do human spaceflight mission control from Johnson Space Center. The characteristics and tenets of these foundations perhaps reflect the same tenets and foundations that you have every day in your duties as leaders in the Alaska Space Program. So let's start our journey. This will be two presentations. The first one will go over the foundations of mission operations. The second one will review some testimony from some friends of mine who lived these foundations. I'll be using my laser pen now and then, and that may be more entertaining than anything else, but I'll use it to show you cool pictures and also make some points. Here's a picture of the Mission Control Center during Apollo 11. And those were some pretty amazing days back in the 60s that I remember. It motivated me to get into this business. And here's what the control center looks like today. Well, let's move on. These are the foundations of mission operations. The foundations were mostly born from a series of challenges and crises that the team faced in the early days during the Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo space programs. Those occurred in the 60s and early 70s. The Apollo 13 movie brings to life the character of Gene Kranz, and he points out that the first teams that were involved in human spaceflight mission control were adapting from high-performance aircraft flight test techniques and operations, and they brought with them a culture that was the basis for spaceflight control, and they refined and learned as they went along. So what they did is they came up with some principles, and 4 of these tenets you see here were the baseline. They were discipline, confidence, responsibility, and teamwork. Those were the 4 essentials that he and other leaders like Chris Kraft felt were needed to enable the flight control teams to do what they needed to do in support of mankind going to space. The principles were not designed to be cast and never change. They were ever evolving. They weren't dreamed up by a focus group or a team on a management retreat and then later to be forced down the throats of a workforce. They were revealed. They became evident and obvious as a part of the way they do everyday business of human spaceflight. The Apollo 1 fire of 1967 led to the addition of toughness and competence, and the loss of Columbia in 2003 led to the development of vigilance. There are 2 other tenets, and we'll discuss them. Let's move on and look a little more detail at the evolution of the foundations of mission operations. Like I said, the original tenets were teamwork, discipline, confidence, and responsibility. Well, teamwork certainly makes sense. Using the abilities of others, respecting and utilizing the talents of each other. Discipline, being able to follow as well as lead, and knowing how to shift from followership to leadership. Confidence, Knowing your job and mastering fear and hesitation, that can be part of it. Space launch operations like you do certainly require competence, and you showcase that. Finally, the four original tenets: responsibility, realizing it can't be shifted to others. It belongs to each of you. We must answer for what we do or fail to do. So these four tenets formed the foundation, the essential core values during the Mercury and Gemini space programs, the stepping stones to Apollo and getting us to the moon. Well, tough times occurred 27 January 1967. That's when the Apollo 1 fire occurred, when astronauts Grissom, White, and Chaffee were killed in an on-pad fire during a rehearsal for a launch. And Gene Kranz wrote a memo to the team and gathered them together and emphasized toughness and confidence as being the means to build upon the lessons and move forward from that tragic event. What is toughness? What is confidence? Toughness means to take a stand when we must, to try again and again, even if it means following a more difficult path. To me, toughness means standing up for what you believe, what your data tells you, what your intuition based on experience tells you. Competence. Here it is stated there is being no substitute for total preparation and complete dedication, for space will not tolerate the careless or indifferent. By competent means you know your job and you're able to move forward and be tough when you must. Gene was so over the moon about this and wanting to get America to the moon that he had each member of the flight control team write tough and competent on their office blackboards. That was not to be erased until the first moon landing was conducted successfully in 1969. So, as Apollo concluded, these 6 tenets: discipline, competence, confidence, responsibility, toughness, and teamwork, served mission operations well. Then, unfortunately, in 2003, 1 February, we lost Columbia and her crew of 7. What happened? Well, there turned out to be problems with getting the orbiter into orbit. There were some material coming off the external tank, striking the orbiter on its way up. And over time, it became commonplace, and people took on the attitude of, well, it's happened before, it hasn't hurt, it's tolerable. Well, Columbia had some foam strike the leading edge of the wing, and this time it became a very horrible situation that they were not even aware of, and we lost the crew. I was involved in the Columbia investigation. It was tough times, and tougher was the fact that 3 months before the mission, I got to have dinner with Rick Husband, and what an honor it was to sit and talk to that remarkable leader, the commander of Columbia. Vigilance means always attentive to the dangers of spaceflight, never accepting success as a substitute for rigor in everything we do. The addition of vigilance meant that we need to respect others questioning the situations where they may need to speak up, requiring respect for what they're saying. So the Columbia accident helped them learn from their overconfidence and complacence on their track record of success. They embraced the core value vigilance, and it completes the 7 tenets. Now, there's 2 other elements to the core value, to the foundations that I want to bring to your attention. They are to always be aware that suddenly and unexpectedly we may find ourselves in a role where our performance has ultimate consequences. Well, I can tell you, based on my experience with space launch and witnessing what you, the great people of Alaska Space, do, every one of you lives this tenet every time a launch rehearsal or campaign occurs, whether it be getting the weather balloons up to determine the winds aloft or helping a launch provider get to their launch commit countdown and onward to space or onto their suborbital flight. You all live this suddenly and unexpectedly tenet where your performance has ultimate consequences. I hope you believe that. I know you believe that. Finally, to recognize that the greatest error is not to have tried and failed, but that in trying, we do not give our best effort. Again, I think this reflects you. So the foundations of mission operations are made up today of seven principles or tenets, and these two additional statements that form the foundation of how they do things down there at Johnson Space Center. So I ask you, imagine the possibilities if every organization had a set of core values and guiding principles like these, as good as these. Along with a sense of purpose and vision, these organizations would be unstoppable. Like the NASA mission operations, they would be built to last, built to grow, and built to support space launch operations. Well, I think I just described you all. So what I want to do now is conclude this segment, but give you a forecast of what's coming. In the next segment, we're going to look at the reflections of those who live the foundations, 6 friends of mine who go back a few years, who live the principles today. And I hope you'll enjoy the second part, which will be in a video next. Thank you for all you do for Alaska Space. You are true pioneers and explorers from the last frontier to the final frontier.